Autumn of 1888. London was gripped by fear. When night fell, people locked their doors. Families warned one another not to stay out late. Newspapers reported the murders almost every day, and rumors about the killer's identity spread through the streets without end. But perhaps the strangest fact of all was this: the murderer kept killing. Yet the police never managed to catch him. How was that even possible? Today, we'll explore why Jack the Ripper was never caught and the enormous challenges the police faced at the time. The London of 1888 was nothing like the city we know today. At the time, London was one of the largest cities in the world. Its population had surpassed 5 million, and countless people entered and left the city every single day. Whitechapel, in particular, was home to poor laborers, immigrants, and the homeless. Its narrow streets twisted like a maze, with hundreds of small alleyways branching in every direction. If a stranger appeared, nobody thought much of it. And for a killer, it was the perfect environment. Today, investigators can analyze DNA left at a crime scene. They can examine fingerprints. They can track mobile phone locations. Security cameras watch over nearly every corner of a city. But in 1888, none of those tools existed. The police had only one thing to rely on: eyewitness testimony. The problem was that the witnesses rarely agreed. One person claimed to have seen a man wearing a dark hat. Another insisted he had a mustache. Someone else described him as a well-dressed gentleman. Every account was different. In the end, the police couldn't even determine what the killer truly looked like. Jack the Ripper also appeared to choose his locations carefully. Most of his attacks occurred in dark alleyways. There were gas lamps, but they provided very little light. Step just a little farther into a side street, and it became difficult to recognize someone's face. To make matters worse, London was often covered in thick fog. On some nights, you could barely see a few yards ahead. The killer took advantage of exactly those conditions. He appeared where people couldn't see him and disappeared before anyone realized he had been there. Even more remarkable was how quickly the murders seemed to happen. Modern criminologists believe Jack the Ripper may have completed his crimes in only a matter of minutes. Meeting a victim, killing her, mutilating the body, and leaving the scene. All of it may have happened far faster than most people imagine. That suggests something important. The killer was extraordinarily calm. Most people would have been overwhelmed with panic. But Jack the Ripper appeared to move as though he had done it before, as though he were completely in control. Because of this, the police began to consider a disturbing possibility. What if the killer was a doctor? Some victims showed signs that internal organs had been removed. Investigators wondered whether the murderer possessed anatomical knowledge. Newspapers seized on the idea. Headlines screamed, "The Mad Doctor" and "The Surgeon Killer." But not everyone agreed. Some medical experts argued that the injuries did not demonstrate the skill of a trained surgeon. Even today, historians and criminologists remain divided. Was Jack the Ripper truly a doctor? Or was that simply another theory in one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries? No one knows for certain.
Autumn, 1888. The series of brutal murders in London's Whitechapel district plunged the city into fear. Police investigated thousands of people and followed countless leads, yet they never managed to capture the killer. And even after more than 130 years, people continue to ask the same question: who was Jack the Ripper? Over the years, hundreds of names have appeared on suspect lists. But a handful of individuals continue to stand out in the eyes of historians and researchers. The first suspect was Aaron Kosminski. He was a Polish Jewish immigrant who lived near Whitechapel. According to police records of the time, he reportedly showed deep hostility toward women and suffered from severe mental illness. Several senior investigators involved in the case later claimed that Kosminski was their strongest suspect. In 2014, headlines around the world appeared when researchers claimed that DNA found on a shawl believed to belong to one of the victims matched a descendant of Kosminski. However, many experts questioned the way the evidence had been preserved and analyzed. As a result, there is still no definitive proof that Aaron Kosminski was Jack the Ripper. The second suspect was Montague Druitt. Druitt was a barrister and schoolteacher. What makes his story so intriguing is that he died under mysterious circumstances shortly after the final canonical victim was murdered. His body was discovered in the River Thames. Some investigators at the time believed he may have taken his own life after committing the crimes. But there was a major problem. There was very little direct evidence linking Druitt to the murders. Today, many researchers believe he became a suspect largely because of the timing of his death. The third suspect was Michael Ostrog. A Russian-born con artist and career criminal, Ostrog had been arrested numerous times and spent years moving from country to country. His violent reputation and suspicious background drew the attention of investigators. Yet later research suggested that he was unlikely to have been the killer. Like many others, his name remained on the suspect list without any conclusive evidence. But as the years passed, an even more shocking theory began to emerge: the royal conspiracy theory. Some writers and researchers suggested that members of the British royal family may have been connected to the murders. According to this theory, the killings were carried out to conceal a royal secret. The idea inspired books, documentaries, and films, capturing the imagination of the public for decades. But historians remain skeptical. To this day, no credible evidence has been found to support royal involvement. Most experts consider it little more than a fascinating conspiracy theory. Another famous suspect was Walter Sickert. Sickert was a well-known British painter who became linked to the Ripper case many decades after the murders. Some researchers pointed to the dark themes in his artwork, claiming they reflected details of the crimes. Others argued that clues could be found in his letters and personal writings. Yet once again, no decisive evidence was ever discovered. In fact, many experts note that records place Sickert away from the crime scenes during key periods of the investigation. In the end, countless names have been proposed, but none have been proven. Why? The answer lies largely in the limitations of 1888. There was no DNA testing, no fingerprint databases, no surveillance cameras. As the years passed, evidence disappeared. Witnesses died. Records became incomplete. Today, researchers often examine the same information and reach completely different conclusions. Some believe Kosminski was the killer. Others point to Druitt, and some argue that the real murderer was someone whose name has never even been considered. Perhaps the name Jack the Ripper became famous, while the face behind it vanished forever into history. For more than a century, people have searched for answers, yet the mystery remains unsolved. And perhaps that is exactly why the case continues to fascinate the world today. But the story is far from over.